Great morning, business owners and managers. Wes Walters here, and welcome to another awesome episode of CX in the Morning. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the hidden competitors. Yes, the hidden competitors. You're asking, Wes, what are the hidden competitors? Well, if you have to ask that question, then this episode is for you, and you should definitely tune in. See you soon. We'll be right back. we are back and welcome to another awesome episode of CX in the Morning. Yes, this is your host, Wes Walters. And man, the check-in before the lesson. How is everyone doing? How has everyone's week been? Man, this week has been amazing. It's been an amazing week for me. Let me know where you're checking in from. Let me know how everything is going for you thus far. All right, cool. So we're going to let the comments roll in, but we have a lot to cover today. So we're going to get right into the juggling. We have lots to cover today. Now, let's kick this episode off. I was minding my business yesterday. So here it is. I was thinking like, man, I don't have any content. I don't know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow on the show. And I pulled up to my mailbox and ta-da! This came in the mail. Look at this relic. Yes, look at this relic. You're like, oh my God, is it what I think it is? Yes, it's one of those. It's a yellow page. Now, I haven't seen one of these in maybe a decade. This is definitely a relic. I want to frame it and put it right between my 2 degrees, right on the wall, right? So it's like Yellow Pages, and I haven't seen one in a decade. So I don't know if they stopped printing and then they started again. Maybe they're back in business. But when I saw it, normally I was like, my initial knee-jerk reaction was going to be like, trash. But I was like, no. That's great content. I'm going to do some content on this. This is a case study. Yeah, intellectuals see everything as through a scientific eye. We're like, oh, some see trash, intellectuals see case study, right? So that's what this is going to be about. Today is going to be about the hidden competitors. You're like, Wes, what in the world is the hidden competitors? I'm glad you asked. Let the juggling begin. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Uh-huh. All right, great. We are live on the screens. All right, cool. So as the topic says, we're going to talk about the hidden competitors. You're like, Wes, what is the hidden competitors? Again, got this in the mail yesterday, and I was kind of flabbergasted. I was like, is that what I think it is? It's the Yellow Pages. Yes. Now, those who are older than 35 know what this is. If you're under 35, you're like, what is this yellow book? Well, I'm glad you asked. Now, this is what the Yellow Pages used to look like. It was like an Encyclopedia Britannica. All of the letters combined, not just one letter, but it was like all of the letters combined. If you were learning to drive and you were vertically challenged, you would sit on Yellow Pages to boost yourself up. If you were sitting at the dinner table, at the bar in your house, if you were too low at the bar, your mother would put Yellow Pages for you to sit on. Now, this picture doesn't do justice of how fat this thing is. So, the Yellow Pages was something like this. All 3 of these books combined. That's how thick the Yellow Pages was. All right. The Yellow Pages was like this. It was thick. All 3 of these books combined. That's how thick the Yellow Pages was, right? And now the Yellow Pages have been in existence since 1883. 1883. Now, you've been in existence since 1883 and you wither away. I wouldn't see that as a failure. I would say, congratulations, great job. You've been in existence over 100 years. Hey, you made it. Sorry you're not going to make it into the next century, but you made it. 1883, that's not a bad run. So now the Yellow Pages didn't foreshadow what was coming. Now, In their minds, they figured that if a company was going to compete with us, it's probably going to be another publishing company. It's going to be a company that does what we do: books, publishing, advertising in paper. They did not have the forward-thinking vision that leadership requires if you're going to stay in business, to say, hey, let's start thinking about ways to put ourselves out of business. That's the thesis statement for today. Let's think of ways to put ourselves out of business. Because of that, the Yellow Pages is what it is today. Look at that compared to this. Now, I'm not sure what businesses in their right minds are still promoted in the Yellow Pages, but it's not as thick, but it's enough businesses to actually print an actual magazine. I don't know how. I give them 3 more years. 3 years. They're not going to be here by 2020, 2030. They're gone. All right. So because they refuse to reinvent, because they refuse to pivot and plan ahead, that's why the Yellow Pages withered away. I want you to keep in mind that exact same thing for your business. If you don't reinvent yourself, if you don't constantly think of how can I put myself out of business, then you're going to suffer exactly the same demise as the Yellow Pages. Another company that was not forward thinking as well. Everyone knows Polaroid. Now, let me tell you this. If you're under 40, you're probably like, what in the world is that thing? That, my friend, was the most gangster camera in that generation. So back then, I know you kids are like, who grew up on Instagram, you're like, you take a picture, boom, it's published right away, right? It's processed right away. But back in the 80s, when you took a picture, it would be on a little film thing, and you had to go to a pharmacy to get it printed. It was just very it was just time consuming. I hated it. And sometimes you would take great pictures. You would use an entire camera, great pictures, and you'd go get them developed. And because you loaded that little film thing incorrectly, or if your fingerprint got on it, so when they published the pictures, your pictures might have fingerprints on it. So it was awful. Then Polaroid came out and be like, look, you can take the pictures and have it right now. First of all, when the first time I saw this, I was like, oh my God, what is this? Magic? I'm like, what type of, I couldn't believe it. This person was doing this. And boom, in a nanosecond, we had an image of what he just took. By the way, the person who did it was rich. I was like, yeah, you're rich. So only rich people had this camera. But Polaroid was not forward thinking enough. They thought because they had the market, this is the way it was going to remain. It was going to remain that way. They were wrong. Polaroid did not forward think enough. Now, of course, digital cameras came in. Now, this bad boy here, we used this when I was in undergrad, this Sony right here. I was working for UPS Logistics. And this was the camera that, this is one of the first digital cameras that we used. And man, it was amazing. But here's the thing. It had a floppy, this a 3.5 floppy. This was early digital cameras. It had a floppy. Now, Polaroid was already behind the 8 ball because Sony and Panasonic and all the other Panasonic was dominating the digital cameras. So by the time Polaroid said, hey, all right, let's go digital, it was too late. This was Polaroid version of a digital camera. Now, by this time, they were behind the 8 ball. It was too late. They missed the boat. It was too late. It was too late. They were not forward thinking. Their leadership team was not forward thinking. They was not thinking of how can we put ourselves out of business. And ultimately, they went out of business. Now, why were they behind the 8 ball? Because here it is. Here's the little fact. All of the information on the internet, that you have right now doubles every 12 days. Pause. Just let that sink in. All of the information on the internet, everything that you can Google right now, 2 weeks from now, is going to double. So if you're behind the 8 ball, chances of you catching up, very slim. You got to have the gods on your side to catch up, because technology is moving so rapidly that if you are behind, you might never catch up. Polaroid, although they had all of the market share with that camera, because they did not reinvent themselves, because they were late to the digital camera market, they never caught up. Ultimately, they went out of business. So you want to think about that in regards to being innovative for your business, because if your competitors release that new update before you, if your competitors bring that new option to the market before you, you are behind the 8 ball and you might never, sadly, never catch up. Let's keep it moving. Now, of course, fast forward even further after the digital cameras, we have IG, we have the IG and the Pinterest. And of course, that's the way cameras, that's the way photos are pretty much processed now. You know, it goes from the phone, immediately uploaded for the world to see. Let's keep it moving. BlackBerry, little company in Canada called BlackBerry, our brothers and sisters across the border up north in Canada. Now, if you're old enough, you understand the foothold that BlackBerry had on the market. Now, this model right here was the most gangster BlackBerry ever. Now, little known fact, BlackBerry had pretty much every government contract. Canadian company, all American government contracts here. BlackBerry had it. And it was the device of choice for corporate America. So they had the market like just juggernaut, just dominating. However, the leadership team was not forward thinking enough. And we know how that ended. Now, keeping in mind, again, all the information doubles every 12 days. They were late. A little name company, little small company, little startup, nothing to be afraid of, called Apple. Little small startup. You might have heard of them. They're not a big deal right now, but eventually they will. A little company called Apple. Now, imagine being in the boardroom at BlackBerry. So, hey, they're thinking that the company that's going to be their competition is going to be another phone company. Never in their wildest dreams they think the company that's going to bring them down is a computer company. Really? I'm sure the former execs right now are going to be like, I could kill that myself. A computer company. Here we are looking at the other phone companies, Motorola. Keep our eyes on Motorola. Keep our eyes on Motorola. From the side, when we wasn't looking, a computer company came and just knocked the living lights out of us. That might have hurt. Must have hurt. So here it is. A company not even in their same industry can and will take you out. Yes. So gone are the days where, when I was growing up, my mentors would always tell me, hey, Wes, you got to have your 10,000 hours and mastery. He said, Wes, stop consuming things that have nothing to do with what your purpose is. You want to do customer experience, stop watching videos about psychology. You want to do customer experience, stop watching videos about technology. Stop watching videos about social media, and be tunnel vision and customer experience. That was the thinking of the early 2000s. You cannot do that anymore and survive. You have to study other industries if you want to survive. You have to. Because here it is, another industry, a company from another industry came in and pretty much annihilated BlackBerry. Let's keep it moving. It gets farther. It goes more. At the time, keep this in mind, at the time, Apple was struggling to gain market share because they had a little success with the new the little colorful MacBooks. Steve Jobs had just returned, but they were struggling. So they needed a game changer, a lifeline, or else they were about to not exist anymore. And that iPhone was that lifeline. Let's keep it moving. Now, again, keeping in mind, all of the information doubles every 12 days. BlackBerry was behind the 8 ball. And since touchscreens was a thing, they released this device. I had this device. I love this device. It was the BlackBerry touchscreen model. And, I was so proud. I would have a see-through case because I wanted everybody to see I had the latest BlackBerry touchscreen. And I would, go next to my my friends who had iPhones. I'd be like, yeah, I got that new BlackBerry. And they would be like, this is garbage. This is garbage. And it was garbage, rightfully so. Now, here it is, being behind the 8 ball, although they released a BlackBerry touchscreen as well, they never caught up. Never. And we know how BlackBerry ended, right? Let's keep it moving. We need more examples. You still are not getting it, right? Still not getting it. The hotel industry. Of course, we know all about the hotel industry and the lock they had on destinations and travel and what families will do. Of course, if you travel, you need a hotel. It's a no-brainer. What's there to talk about? Ha ha. In comes a company that owns no properties, and now they're the largest in this industry. Forward thinking. Now, luckily, most of the hotels did not go out of business, but they lost a huge, huge market share. Most of the time when I travel for business, it's Airbnb all day. All day. Unless the client is paying. Now, if the client is paying, of course, I go to a hotel. But if I'm paying, it's an Airbnb. And I travel a lot for work. Not being forward thinking. So here it is. We're in the hospitality industry. Hotels. We're thinking if Marriott is looking at the Sheratons are looking at the Ritz are, that's who they're looking at. Never were they thinking, no, we need to look at the people who own homes. That's our competition. Again, being so forward thinking that someone outside of our industry can come in and dominate. Why it's so important to read and learn outside of your industry, not be tunnel vision. That tunnel vision of mastery in regards to just focusing only on your industry, consume content only about your industry. That's early 2000 thinking. If you do that right now, you're not going to exist. More examples. Blockbuster. Let's take a trip down nostalgia lane. Every Friday, I look forward to going to Blockbuster with my kids. I mean, it was a family tradition. On Friday nights, we would go. My son would be able to pick 2 DVDs. My daughter could pick 2 DVDs. I would pick 2 DVDs. And Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we would watch movies all weekend. Especially when I was in grad school, I would get I said, hey, you guys can have 4 DVDs because I needed to keep them preoccupied while I was doing homework. Lots of homework in grad school. So Blockbuster, not forward thinking enough, thinking that they had a lock on the market that, yeah, it's going to continue that way. Now, if you go to YouTube, you can watch the Blockbuster documentary. I'm not going to go into it, but they had an opportunity, if I'm not mistaken, to buy Netflix, and the CEO declined. Like, nah, that's not going to last. Streaming, what's that? Grave mistake. Before they fell, of course, we had DVDs by mail, and then ultimately the red box and the big red gorilla, Netflix, and the rest of that is history. Let's keep it moving. More examples, because you're still not getting it. You're still thinking, well, Wes, this doesn't apply to my business. It will at the end. Stick with me. How many of you remember MapQuest? Man, the young kids are like, what's MapQuest? MapQuest was the king. If you're traveling, you would go to MapQuest first, type in the address, and you would have to print No, actual. No, I'm not talking about an e-print, not a PDF. No, a print with paper. You would print it out, and you would have your directions in your hands. Now, if you were traveling to a state like Florida, that Florida has a budget for freeway constructions like no other. I have been going to Miami for 25 years, and from Atlanta to Miami, for the last 25 years, they have been working on I-95 and on the 75 South Turnpike for 25 years. What they do in Florida is they pave the streets, and once it's paved and they got to check on it, they dig it back up and get more funds. I'm convinced that's what they do, because for the last 25 years, I-95 South and 75 South on the Turnpike has been under construction. I can't make this stuff up. So if you had MapQuest printed out and you're heading to Florida, and then there's a construction that detours you to another direction, you are lost. It was no recalculating, because your MapQuest says stay straight, and now they're telling me to go to the right. They're like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Not thinking fast forward, not thinking ahead. They thought that, hey, if a company is going to give us competition, it's going to be another map company, right? Ha ha. Like the scene in Coming to America. Ha ha. Not knowing that in a couple of years, these big boys would be the dominating factors in the industry. Google Maps, Waze, and all the other apps. Not thinking far, not thinking ahead enough to say, hey, how can we put ourselves out of business? This needs to be something that you're constantly thinking about. Every quarter, listen up. When you do your SWOT analysis, part of your SWOT analysis with your team is thinking of ways, how can we put ourselves out of business? Ladies and gentlemen, this is paramount. This is paramount. Like, I don't know how to drive this message home, that this needs to be something that is discussed on a daily basis. How can we put ourselves out of business? Because if you are not thinking of ways to put yourself out of business, guess who is thinking of putting you out of business? Your competition. And don't hit me with that holy nonsense, but, well, there's no competition. Oh yeah, that's what Blockbuster said. That's what MapQuest said. Oh, there's no competition. Right. Let's keep it moving. Wonderful cab industry. You know where this is going, right? Of course, let's take a city for like New York. Domination. Never in their minds, as a cab industry, they're thinking their number one competitor is the subway. The subway is, we got to keep our eyes on the subway. We got to keep our eyes on the buses. We got to keep our eyes on the light rail system. That's the mindset of what the cab company was thinking. This is who we got to compete with. Never in their wildest dreams they foreshadow and say, hey, someone is going to create a technology that's going to allow people to just have a smartphone, call their aunt, make a request, and their aunt or their uncle or their brother or their friend is going to pull up in a car, pick them up, know exactly where they are on the planet, pick them up, no cash is exchanged, and drop them off safely. Never in their wildest dreams did the individuals at the helm of the cab companies think that this could be a possibility. They're like, hey, let's keep our eyes on the metro. Let's keep our eyes on the bus. Let's keep our eyes on the light rail, and we'll be fine. The sneak attack came in and got them. Hopefully you're getting the message. You're getting the message now, but it gets deeper. Of course, again, Uber and Lyft came about. How many of you guys remember this? You got to be over 40 to know what that is. Well, maybe over 32, maybe 30 as well. So this, of course, if you're young and you're like, what in the world is that? That is a VHS. Let's call it VHS. Now, if you're old enough
I guess I know this because I have a television and film background, so I had to. This was part of studies. So Sony, when VHS were released, there were two companies. The company that I forgot the name of the company that won the battle with Sony with VHS. So there was one company that produced VHS. There was another company called Sony that created a similar product called Beta. You're like, yeah, Beta, right? So this is what a Beta tape looked like. VHS, Beta. If you don't remember Beta, that it's because Sony lost the battle. It was a huge loss for the Japanese company, and they took it very hard. Now, what do you do when you lose a fight? Where I'm from, when you lose a fight, you go back and recoup. Like there's a line in 50 Cent's, one of 50 Cent's songs. It says, if I lose, I start the, I'm summarizing. 50 Cent says, if we lose, we come back and start the beef again. So a Japanese company like Sony, warriors. You're talking about samurai warriors. They were not going to take that loss and just say, hey, it's a loss, let's move on. No, they built that resentment for years. It kept brewing, and they kept perfecting their craft because they were forward thinking enough, implementing the Kaizen principles, the Japanese principle of Kaizen, and they knew there was going to be another time where the battle will come again. And it did come again. Luckily, the lightning struck twice for Sony, and they were able to win the battle the second time around. Again, this rarely happens. Lightning struck twice for Sony. They lost the battle against VHS. If you don't know what this is, it's because they lost the battle. Now, I know what this Beta tape is because I had to study it in film class, but Sony lost the battle to VHS, and it was a huge blow. They never got over it the way warriors are supposed to. You don't take no L's. Like, we don't take Walters, we don't take L's. So Sony pretty much had the Walters philosophy, and they're like, we're not going to take an L. And they lost the battle with Beta, and they kept working on their craft. And when the opportunity presented itself again, this is the comparison of what the Beta looks like by Sony and the VHS. When the opportunity presented itself again, Sony did not cut corners. The opportunity presented itself again. We had HD DVD versus Blu-ray. And Sony was not going to lose the battle this time. What did they do? Brilliant. Forward thinking. Sony went directly to the Hollywood studios. Man, gangster. So Sony went straight to Warner Brothers, Buena Vista, New Line, 21st Century, and of course, they had their own studio. So all of Sony's movies was, for a moment, was exclusively on Blu-ray. So now, of course, the other studios, Paramount and Universal, were on HD DVD. But again, as you can see as the graph, they had, of course, more market share. MGM, Fox, Miramax, Lionsgate. Lionsgate is a big boy. New Line Cinema, 21st Century, and of course, Sony Pictures. And we know how that ended. Eventually, HD DVD threw in the white flag, and Sony was the victor. Here's another comparison. Now, here's a little story of how another Japanese company, of thinking outside the box. Again, not just studying your industry. So obviously Lexus is an automobile company. And when Japan was thinking of creating a luxury car, in the R&D, they sent their researchers to America to study the luxury lines in America. So they knew it had to have rear wheel drive. It needed to be big and spacious. So they did their research and development, and they went back. But what Lexus wanted to do was to separate themselves from the typical luxury lines in America, which was Cadillac at the time. All right, Cadillac. Huh? Now, if you're old enough, again, you have to be old enough to know this. Car dealerships did not look like the way they look now. The way car dealerships looks like now, you can give thanks to the Japanese company Toyota because of Lexus. Before, in the 80s, if you go to a car dealership, it did not look the way it looks now. Like right now, you go to a car dealership, it could be anything. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a luxury line. If you go to a car dealership right now, let's go a Nissan or a Ford. I mean, it's nice in there. They got greenery, plants, champagne. I mean, if you go to a car dealership right now, it's an experience. When you walk in, the customer experience is bar none. And you can say thank you to the Lexus, because when Lexus was coming to America, they said, we're going to have the best product, but what can separate us from Cadillac? The customer experience. And what did they do? They didn't study Cadillac. They didn't study the other car industries. They didn't study Honda, because I want to be very clear. A lot of people think that Lexus was the first Japanese automobile out of Japan. No, it's not. Acura. So Honda beat Toyota to the punch. The Honda Acura is officially the first luxury car from Japan. It's not Toyota. It's not Lexus. So Honda actually had beat Toyota to the punch to the American market, and Lexus came in, Toyota came, studied, went back, got it right. And what separated them from the competition was the customer experience. They said, we're going to improve and we're going to make the selling of a car, your purchase is going to be like no other. Now, of course, I was too young at that age to experience what it was like, but I've been to a Lexus dealer recently as an adult, and it's like nothing else. But how did they change the car buying experience? Lexus studied the hospitality industry. I know this because I study it. So Lexus studied the Marriotts. Lexus studied the Ritz. So here it is, an automobile company studying another industry to gain success. Now, if they were like me and following what my mentors told me 10 years ago, Wes, be tunnel vision and only study your craft. If Lexus was to only study their craft, they would only be studying automobiles and they would have missed the boat. But they thought outside of the box and they said, yes, we're a car dealership. We're a car manufacturer, but to add and to enhance the customer experience, we're going to study the hospitality industry. So most of the early Lexus dealerships resembled a hotel lobby. That's where all of the car dealerships of today got that blueprint from, is from Lexus in the early 80s. So that's a gem. Take notes down. That's a gem. Let's keep it moving. So this is, of course, one of the hotel lobbies, and Lexus studied this. They didn't study Cadillac. They didn't go to Detroit and be like, okay, let's mimic what Cadillac had, what GM is doing. No. They went to the hospitality industry and said, we're going to make our lobby for our car dealerships look and resemble a lobby of a hotel. It's going to have plants. It's going to have curtains. It's going to have a lot of bright light. Look at those big windows. Look at those big windows. It's going to have a lot of bright light. So when you come in, you're relaxed. They're going to use scent marketing. It's going to have vanillas and cinnamon, soft luxury smells, so that you can spend more money. Not sharp or harsh scents like eucalyptus or peppermint. Those are not associated with luxury items. Citrus, no. In the Lexus dealerships, they had cinnamon, vanilla, soft and warm scents, warm earth colors. Look at the browns. So when you got in, you were like, oh my God, I could sit back. And it's kind of like, just take my credit cards, I'm buying it. That type of energy. Just take my credit cards, I'm buying it. That's what Lexus did, thinking outside of their industry. So let's pull it full circle. Whatever industry you're in, it behooves you to study other industries. Do not take what my mentor used to tell me about 10 years ago. Wes, be tunnel vision, only focus on what you want to do. Like when I was in undergrad studying video and film, my professors would say, don't consume any other content. Yeah, professors would say this. You don't need to learn Photoshop. You don't need to learn, study Final Cut. All you need to do is learn how to edit and learn how to shoot. You need to be studying the cameras and editing software. Now you understand the importance of psychology. Now you understand the importance of understanding how consumers think. So knowing psychology is a plus. So study other industries if you're wise. And when your budget allows, hire someone just for that position. What's your job? My job is that Mr. Walters hired me to think of creative ways to put the business out of business. That's my job. When your budget allows it, there's all of the Fortune 500 companies have this. They have someone on the team, definitely in the automobile industry, for QC, to think of ways to put themselves out of business. Forgot what the title is, but that's a position. All they do is they're a thinker. Every day they're thinking of how can we make this obsolete, because we want to be ahead. We want to make ourselves obsolete. If we don't, our competition is. Look at Apple. Apple created the iPod, the music one. And they made it obsolete with this iPhone that I'm recording on right now. Yes, because they're like, you know what? We're going to make it obsolete before our competition, because Microsoft was coming for them. It was only a matter of time before other companies started making MP3 players that were just as good but cheaper. And for someone like me who don't need all the bells and whistles, I just need something when I'm running. Any MP3 player, man, a USB stick with headphones would work for me, because I just need to run. It don't need to be an iPod. So Apple ultimately made the iPod obsolete because you had an iPod with the phone. Smart move, forward thinking. So if your budget allows it, hire someone who can think. That's their job, to think of ways to put your business put your company out of business. Now, if you need to hire someone, today's your lucky day. There's no other company that does it better than Wes Walters and Associates. Yes. So if you need help with something like that, and it's in your budget, we can come in as a consultant, my team and I, and we can give you internal audits, and we can function from a place where we can think and look at your business, look at your SOPs, look at your company culture, and say, how can we make this obsolete? Because, of course, culture is the operating system of business. So if you need help with that, definitely just reach out to Wes Walters. All you got to do is go to workwithwes.com, and someone from my team. Oh, that guy is handsome. Look at that guy. Man, listen, whatever he's selling, I'm buying. That guy is, that's somebody you want to do business with. But anyway, on a real note, just go to work with Wes Walters, workwithwes.com, and someone from my team will definitely reach out to you, and we can assist you with that. And that's it. That's a wrap. The juggling is over. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Lots of gems. Take what you've learned and implement it. Don't just watch it. You wasted 35 minutes just to watch. No, take what you've learned, implement it, making you and your business better. It was a pleasure. See you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back here next Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern for another awesome episode of CX in the Morning. Thanks.